Welcome to T-Set Pass, my weekly Yu-Gi-Oh podcast where we talk about all things from competitive to casual. This week is slightly more competitive than normal because I'm entering my first Yu-Gi-Oh regional in about 2 years. You may be wondering what a regional is, and if you've ever competed in any kind of sport, then you'll probably know that a regional is a slightly larger tournament where duelists can come together and compete for the top spot. In Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively, games are best of 3, and you only have 40 minutes a game. If you hit the end of 40 minutes, and you often do, then the person with the most life points wins that game, which can be very nasty. Like I say, I haven't entered one of these tournaments for a very long time, and I only did one before, and it's incredibly draining. You arrive very early in the morning, and you could be there until very late in the evening. I don't think we got out till about 6 or 7 last time. Which isn't so bad if you're out having fun, but if you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All day, your brain will be cooked. It takes a lot of thought, and there's some stress involved. If anyone remembers Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I think I'm planning to go with a hero deck. It won't just be elemental heroes like back in the day, it'll be a nice mix of all the new types of heroes that have come out in the years since. As I am very much beginning my career in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, a career that could be cut very short depending on how terribly this weekend goes, I decided to speak to someone who's very experienced in the field. Slaydra, who used to go by the name Asian Eyes on YouTube, is one of the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh! Content creators around. Here's a little chunk of the conversation that we had about what got him into Yu-Gi-Oh! And how he feels as a competitive player, or at least as an ex-competitive player in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did, because I learned a lot from him.
How did you sort of get into the game initially, before even you maybe started making stuff about it?
So I knew about the game, like as a kid, you see like Pokemon cards, Digimon cards. I collected all of them, but I really didn't know how to play too much. But with Yu-Gi-Oh, I actually picked up the game. Like technically I had played the game before, but when I really enjoyed myself with the game was with the Game Boy Advance game, Eternal Duelist Soul. And that got me into learning, and I was like, oh man, this game is so cool. And then I'm not sure exactly what made me want to play the game and go to locals more than the PSP game. There was what was it called? It was like Tag Duel. It was one of the Tag Duel games.
Yeah,
and I built
GX
this deck.
ones.
And I was like, wow, this is so cool, because I was winning every single time against the AI, but winning against AI is nothing. And I had this stall deck with Solar Flare Dragon. And I was like, dude, I could go win tournaments with this. I'll never lose, because
they can't attack. They can't attack when you got 2 or whatever. I can't remember.
I thought it was
yeah.
Yeah, you just had 2 Solar Flare Dragons, and I had Gravity Bind, Level Limit, Area B, and I was like, this is the most OP deck, Wave Motion Cannon. I was like, they can never attack me, and I'll just wait, and I just win every single time. And then you go to a real tournament, and you get absolutely destroyed. I think it was some sort. I don't know if it was they called them SJCs before. Before it was YCS, they called them SJCs.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was one of that or regionals.
It's like Shonen Jump Championship, because they do the magazine, don't they? Well, they used to be called SJCs before they got changed to YCSs. But yeah, I took my deck there, and I felt like I couldn't play. I was so confused. But it's because you don't really know what the meta is, because I didn't know what the heck meta was, which is kind of you play with the cards that you think are good and you put them in a deck. And then eventually I picked up Light Sworn, Black Wings, Glad Beast, all the core 3 decks that I think that were really good for players to understand Yu-Gi-Oh, specifically Glad Beast. Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, this game is so cool. And I had the idea oh, I can't wait to be able to go to this tournament and then qualify, get my Nats invite, and go to play Worlds. And I got my Nats invite, I don't remember what year it was, and then I started thinking about other games. I started looking at other games for their prize pools. If you look at Fortnite's prize pool compared to Yu-Gi-Oh's, it's non-existent.
Yeah.
And that kind of deterred me from really wanting to go just to these events to go place. And all you really can get from placing with Yu-Gi-Oh is you get at the time you used to be able to get a binder, you'd get a mat, you get some packs, and in terms of cost effectiveness, because I was working, I had a normal human job at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, well, I'm taking 3 to 4 days off. I'm paying, usually I'd go with my friends and we'd split a hotel, we'd split gas, and it would be several days off of work. I'd have to have a deck that's several $100s, and I'd be like, yeah. And, at the time doing that work, because I was like, well, I could just go play over here. And I started recording my own videos, and through that I had a lot more fun doing stupid stuff than taking the game seriously.
Yeah.
Do you
like some of the stuff that you see in animes and that stuff?
Yeah, it's I was going to say I had the exact same experience when I was a kid. I think when I was maybe 13, 14, I remember going to my first locals. It was like a pile of. It wasn't like just like a bunch of blue eyes, but it was very much sort of like that couple of structure decks put together. And I went there, and I think maybe round 1 or round 2, I was against a Glad Beast duelist at sort of like peak Glad Beast format, and I'm like, what is this contact? This Glad Beasts aren't in the anime. Well, I haven't seen these cards before, and they're doing contact fusion. He's blowing up half my field, and I can't do anything. It's a very humbling experience, I think, going to your first tournament and getting absolutely curb stomped by somebody who knows what they're doing. Yeah, but did like and you were so right about the cost of time in the game versus the reward you get out of it. It's it's such a steep curve for some people, and it's a good reason why a lot of people don't play, especially like you talked about £700 decks. Current format, what is Kashtira, at least was like it's a grand, I think, for the most optimal Kashtira build, and even then Kashtira, everyone's playing around it. So you may pay a grand for a deck that everybody is main and sideboarding for, and you might still lose a lot of your games. It's a ridiculous investment when you look at the prize pool to come out of it after, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely an expensive hobby, but like I've looked at other expensive hobbies like airsoft, paintball, like any hobby that anyone enjoys, right? There is going to be a cost with it. Yeah, so like the huge drive for me originally with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like I thought legitimately like I had the best deck, I'm gonna go win tournaments, but then I started playing, and like even if I was to win the tournament, the payout, what do you get off of it? I guess you get to be able to say I won, but when you compare it to like other games, like for example, like I participated in Black Desert. They had a battle royale game they were promoting, and I got invited to the Streamers Invitationals, and it was just a 1-day event, and I took 5th place and won $1,000
for 5th.
For 5th, and that was just way better in terms of like obviously you still have to practice with any video game, right? You're not going to be able to just be like go in and just auto win unless, I know there's the argument with certain Yu-Gi-Oh decks, any like Mystic Mine or Final Countdown, even Frog FTK, where once you learn the thing, your opponent for the most part doesn't matter. Like as in you're playing with a different sort of game sense, like in terms of like what you need to know. With like Frog FTK, like you just win turn 1, but there are plays where like you can side deck out of Frog FTK and go to like Monarch Frogs, and you can do other things. But for the most part, the amount of time that you spent sometimes with Yu-Gi-Oh, the interesting thing is no matter how much time you put in, there's still RNG. It's probably the same thing with like maybe Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering too, where like sometimes you could have the best hand and you still like lose because he has the better hand. Like you have the best hand in your deck, but his deck just wins. And that's one thing I've hated with Yu-Gi-Oh! Like even like I still have it's even uploaded on my channel. Like when I was trying to push for the highest rank you can get in Master Duel, the final game that got me to the highest rank of the game, my opponent literally could not play the game. I stopped. I had this was before when Halki Fibrax existed. Yeah. The end board was they can't play any spells. I have 5 Omni Negates, and if they set anything, the guy was playing Eldritch, because at the time Sky Striker and Eldritch were like the top 2 meta decks. You can go into Crystron. What is it? It was the so when it pops all the back row, it's a synchro. I forgot what it was.
God, I know you. Yeah, I know you mean it's on the top of my head. But
it's a synchro. You end up going for like Shooting Star Dragon, and then you end up popping all their back row. So you like set 3 or 4 cards, and then on the end phase, I make that, and it pops everything. And so basically, there's no spells, there's no traps, and you have 5 monster effect negates. And it didn't matter what he was playing, pretty much. Like unless he happened to have. My variant played out in Nibiru because there's a certain play where like you make yourself immune, obviously with Miscellaneosaurus, so you're basically immune. You lose out on like another like negation with Appaloosa, but for the most part, it plays out in Nibiru relatively easy unless they have like a Ghost Ogre
And on top of that, they have like ash balls. They have to have like so many hand traps.
And at that point, let's say they had all the hand traps. They begin their turn. What? They've discarded 4 cards from their hand to be hand traps. And what, they're going to make a whole play now with 1 card, 2 cards, maybe? Like, yeah.
Well, the thing is like, I even go back sometimes and I look at like the old like people that I used to look up with Yu-Gi-Oh, like Cesar Gonzalez, Adam Korn, these people that were really good. And there was a video by Adam Korn, and he was getting upset at the time where I think it was like plant format where there's gravekeepers. Like at one point, gravekeepers and plants were like relatively popular.
Yeah.
And he was complaining about how the game took a lot less skill, that it took no critical thinking anymore. And what's crazy is a lot of the stuff that he's mentioning, it's just gone further and further down that hole of like, what is card advantage? It doesn't even mean anything anymore. Because back in the day, it's like cards in hand, you know, you have 2 or 3 cards. Maybe you can make a play with 2 or 3 cards, but nowadays you need 1 card and you could OTK, you could pull off crazy combos with 1 to 2 cards. Whereas back in the day, your resources mattered a lot more. And it's interesting to see like how the game has evolved. But like now I'm more into I just like to have fun with the game.
Yeah.
Pushing the best deck. Like I could go play Master Duel and get rank 1 in the game. But what's really the point in doing it other than for creating content, which people sometimes complain about? Oh, you're just able to play this deck. That's how you get to the highest rank. And it's like, well, you kind of got to. It's not like a fighting game or other video games where like you could be really good with one character. Like you could be the best Crystal Beast player, but are you going to have a good time against Kashtira when all the zones are locked out? It doesn't matter how good you are, if that makes any sense.
And some decks you can pilot amazingly. Like I think when the Crystal Beast deck came out, I did a video saying, should you buy the deck? And I was like, no, you should buy the staples. And then, a couple of months later, people come in and they're like, you're an idiot, the Crystal Beast deck, it just got like top 16. I think it was the Neshi guy playing it, who all he does is, if you look at his channel, all it is Crystal Beast combo tech. Like he's given his life to that deck. And I'm like, he's very, very good with that deck. I don't think you're going to be like Joe blogs off the street. You're going to pick up the Crystal Beast structure deck and you're going to go to locals. You might win. You know what I mean? Like some people are very, very, very good pilots and they take some medium to high tier decks and they win those tournaments because they know exactly what they're doing. That doesn't mean that if I gave, even if you gave the top winning deck to somebody who's never played the game before, obviously they'd be in a much better position to win. But sometimes a pilot does make a difference to elevate a mediocre deck. But that doesn't mean the deck isn't weaker. Like it's a fundamentally weaker deck to play. If you're playing Crystal Beast versus Cash right now, maybe if the best pilot in the world scums it out, but they're putting in a lot more effort for what they're getting out of it. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, you could definitely be really good with deck. Like most people thought I was stupid for playing dinosaurs when I was trying to push for the highest rank, because in Master Duel, I don't remember what the exact list was, but I remember it was a lot different than the TCG.
Yeah.
In terms of like what you could play. But the thing is that some people, like, they've learned the deck in and out, and at the end of the day, you can make like 5 negates with Crystal Beast. I probably have videos showing that off, but can you do it every single turn consistently with like 1 to 2 cards? Maybe not. But like, if you know what combos work with the certain cards, sure. Like you said, like if you put a lot more time into it, that's gonna pay off.
Yeah,
Definitely.
You see those ones, like you mentioned the Crystal, the Haka Fibrax combos, which would end on the Omni Negates and the Pops. And you can make those in lots and lots of decks. It's like if you'd see these on like things like the Table 500 duels, that kind of thing. Somebody would have this amazing wombo combo. I'm going through 700 Infernity cards. I'm ending on 3 negates and 2 pops and stuff. It's like, but you can do that easier. You can do that all off a 1-card play. If I was playing a better deck, you can do it with with the bad deck, but you could do it for half the time and in half the cards, and then still have room for hand traps. If you were playing sort of like the Punk package or something, you can spam out those synchros easier. You're very right in terms of like, you can do a lot of things, but can you do it consistently, and can you do it for the same amount of resources? Because resources to the current meta decks just don't mean a lot when you've got a lot of 1-card starters.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's like changed with the game. And I'm sure that later down the line, there's going to be lots of other like 1 to 2 card combos that kind of do the same thing. At the end of the day, now Yu-Gi-Oh has, for me at least, it's become, okay, can your deck make so many negates that turn 1 your opponent cannot play? If it's not, then I genuinely read the comments. And when I show off, like, I remember when I was showing off Warrock or even the more recent VS, or like, well, this deck sucks, it doesn't make 5 negates. I mean, while they are correct on that, that's just the nature of like the competitive player base. Like that's all we really care about is, does it negate and destroy? No? Okay, well then let's move on to another deck. Well, it's kind of sad, but that's the way it is.
Clearly Konami think the same as you. They don't want to stop the freedom, but they also want to put a curb on it sometimes. Obviously, sometimes they clearly don't care at all when they make the next crazy gas. But I was just thinking back to the video where they announced Nibiru was coming, and I remember the guy justifying it. So, you know, we had a talk on that 5 summons is probably when things are starting to go a bit crazy. Like anything up to 5 is probably okay. Do you think there's like a ruling or a card or a mechanic that you can think of? How would you sort of, in the same way that Nibiru is like, all right, you've gone over 4, you've taken the piss now, here's the rock, sort of like a way to sort of not kill the game, but put a cap on it.
Slow it down?
Yeah, or slow it down or restrict it or something. What would you do to fix the game? Obviously, it's a bit more complicated an issue than that, but like anything that comes to mind?
Well, when people say fix the game, I've heard that term thrown out a lot. Like they always say like, okay, this is not healthy for the game. But at the end of the day, what's healthy for the game in reality is, are people still buying the product? Because if people aren't buying the product, then there can't be, they can't hire the artists to make the new cards. And I don't know if they really need to cater towards a different audience that would be more accepting of like, okay, this is how you play. There's a progression system. And the reason why is if you take any younger kid, right, that is playing Fortnite or even Pokemon or any other game, and you show them Yu-Gi-Oh! And you explain to them all of the actual rules, like the missing the timing, the explanation of the battle phase. It's so complex to where they can't get fresh blood in the game, in my personal opinion at least.
Yeah.
Obviously, their marketing division may have a way to cater towards children. In fact, I think they want to, because they have all of their settings on YouTube. So like you can't even put notifications on. Right. So they are actually advertising, because there's a YouTube setting that says that your content is designed for children, and they have that enabled. So they want to advertise to children. Obviously, that's what their goal is. But I genuinely, when I go to at least my locals, there's no children. Like once in a while there'll be some kid, and I feel so bad because every time there's a new fresh little kid, it's like, hey kid, let me see your trades. And he's just gonna want like the pretty looking cards, and he's gonna lose out his $30 to $50 secret rares to like $1 cards. But the thing is that, is he actually going to stay in the game?
Yeah.
Maybe not. He's going to get, like, the kid that goes there where his mom's like, okay, I'll wait over here by the corner. Let me know when you're done. And it's like several hours. Usually the kid ends up leaving because he loses too much. And then he'll go like trade and get ripped off. And then he'll be like, well, I got destroyed. And he'll never maybe even come back. Because that usually happens, at least in my locals. Most little kids that come one time. It could also be because, the parent doesn't want to sit there because they don't know what a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament is. Some of these tournaments, like just for locals, for like even the turbo packs, could be several hours long, where we go way into the midnight when we're playing because the rounds just last too long or whatever. So I don't know if whatever healthy is for the game is to try to get fresh blood, because it's so hard, right? There's so many different games that compete for your time. Like if you look at any video game that's coming out nowadays, we have a battle pass that you got to grind, and people want to try to grind out the battle pass. There's so many of these like things where it's like, okay, there's a weekly event, whatever. It's hard to keep new kids into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because if you think about it, going to the locals, the parents have to consistently buy the new cards for them, and the kid might not even get the card that they want. So they'd probably rather just be like, here's $10, here's a battle pass, go play Call of Duty, sit at home, so I don't have to drive you to locals.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge disconnect, and that's probably why we don't see too many kids.
No, I think you're right. And I think you can tell that they're trying to appeal to kids more with the Rush, like the Rush duels. Entirely different format, entirely different. Well, there's obviously a root in similarity, but if I haven't played very much, I've dabbled a tiny bit just to sort of see what it's about. Drawing up to 5 cards a turn, summon. It feels very much more like dopamine driven in terms of sort of like doing things, but also the cards are very much of a lower power level than real Yu-Gi-Oh! It's interesting to see them trying something, but then again, they didn't bring it to the West because of the whole Clash of the Speed Duels thing, and I think there's a big disconnect there between, do they want new players or do they want to just keep appeasing older players? Obviously, there was that whole drama where they changed a Zexal character on the front of a booster pack for a DM character, and people were sort of saying it's pandering, but...
Well, yeah, I've noticed that a lot with any subject matter. They always go back to the nostalgic Dark Magician Blue Eyes. Like, they just did the Adidas collab. They focus a lot on that. And what I find very interesting is, with the exception of the time where the Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie came out and they had that special like ban list to make Blue Eyes legitimately like one of the best decks.
Yeah.
The decks aren't actually good. Like Dark Magician Blue Eyes, even though if you ask any person, because I create lots of TikTok content as well, like people always think, I don't know why, they always think Egyptian Gods and Blue Eyes and Dark Magician are the best deck. I don't know why, but in their mind they think that. And
exactly, yeah.
It's funny because it's so like actually bad. And I don't know why they don't make their iconic like Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, Egyptian Gods. I'm not saying making them like so broken that they're the only decks playable, but at least make them playable so you can actually like win with them. Because that will give the younger audience, oh, I remember Blue Eyes as a kid, or people that have nostalgia. Nostalgia runs really well. That's why Dragon Ball Z is so successful with consistently Goku's in this game, or whatever that they're doing for collabs. They always will go back to the original characters.
Well, they did that one time with Blue Eyes, but never consistently just kept support coming out, even if it was a couple of cards a pack. Like, when you look at how many Blackwings we've got, could they not have been some little Blue Eyeses or Dark Magicians?
Yeah, Blackwing's got support for a really long time. Same thing with Lightsworn, but sometimes with the newer support, it's just underwhelming, and it feels like it's pointless support. But I don't know. I've had this conversation before too, where like people like want every single Yu-Gi-Oh card, like whatever new archetype to come out, to be really good. And I think for better archetypes to exist, there has to be bad archetypes. Like, it's just kind of just how things are. To have the best characters, some other thing has to be worse. And I think that can be okay in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the reason why I think it's okay is because, and one thing that's really cool with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, sometimes you have a card, it's worth like 10 cents. And then like, I don't know, 3-4 years later, there's some new support and everyone wants like the original first and secret rare version of this. And the 10-cent card is worth like $20. And it gets you excited. That's one thing that kind of excited me when I used to vend Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, the card game could fluctuate and your 10-cent card could go way up, or sometimes it works in the opposite direction. Now with the no ban list dates, you don't know when you're going to get screwed over. And it really sucks because I used to work with some card companies and they'd tell me like they hated when new ban lists would come out because they'd have to delist everything because people would just buy them out. Like the second the new ban list comes out, they just buy out all of them. They go to every single website, buy out everything that's like, 10 cents that's worth a lot more now because it's not on the ban list, or if it's the other way around. What they'll do is, like, if a card gets banned, they will go try to fulfill a order of, I'm selling you this card that is now banned, but it's because the ban list just updated, and because we don't have no time on the ban list, no day on the ban list, the vendors actually get kind of screwed over because it's like, do we cancel this person's order that he's selling cards to us because, the new ban list, they're going to lose money if they take the order. But if they don't, then they're going to get mad. They'll be like, this card company is terrible. They didn't accept my order and I sent it in.
And it gets all the backlash online. And then they're like, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen so many card companies get screwed over. And it sucks, but that's like one area where it would be nice to have a ban list, at least. Like a date. Like,
I do miss the dates. It's weird. It's so odd. I don't know if you feel it too. I think it is odd that the ban list is one of the most exciting parts of being a Yu-Gi-Oh player, even if it's negative excitement, it's sort of like dread, you know what I mean? It's one of the most emotional times of the year outside of actually playing the game. And I feel like sometimes, you hear all the time, sort of like, I'm sitting this format out until the next ban list because I'm sick of this game, or for a bit, you know what I mean? And it's
you can at least know when to come back. That's at least,
I've recently collected every single banned card just for a series on TikTok. And And it is crazy, the fluctuations in price. And because of the no dates, it's been the case that I've bought several cards for the series, because I tried to do a couple every month. That some cards have just come off entirely, and it's been a massive price. I think I bought my Stellar Ptolemaeus. I think I bought that for like £2, and it was, when that came off the list, it was back up to 30 for everything. It is crazy how the numbers just change so wildly whenever it's ban list season. But yeah, I do think the ban list is something that brings a lot of people together, and it gets people talking. It even gets people talking that haven't been in the game for a while, because obviously cards come off. People start talking about Yatagarasu to 3. That kind of thing. And I think it's nice to see old players come back, even if it's just to moan like about something getting banned or something getting unbanned. I think it's interesting, the conversations that go around that kind of time of year.
I think banlist topics always do really well for like any content creator, I would say. So like I like talking about like theory crafting and like the predictions. I like looking at those videos more than anything. And the reason why those videos are so good, you could if you really wanted to, you could just go out and be crazy with your ban list ideas. Because I remember I was talking about like Thousand Eyes Restrict and Yatagarasu way long ago before they were unbanned. I'm like, these cards wouldn't do anything, especially Yatagarasu at this day and age. And people are like, no, you're crazy. This card would break the game. And it's like, now no one will even play it, because it's like, it uses your normal summon. It doesn't negate and destroy. It's not essentially a good like turn 1 card, or even going second. Like, what are you gonna do with Regeki and then Yatagarasu attack? Like, it's unrealistic.
No, exactly.
And it's interesting to see like where people's mindsets are at, but like all that kind of stuff, when people comment, no, you're wrong on this, that helps the algorithm. That's why all the ban list videos on YouTube and even TikTok, anything that encourages comments. Sometimes I feel like content creators do bait. I've probably baited some like stuff before, saying like, dude, this deck is going to be the best. When I genuinely think it's going to be the best, people are like, dude, you're just baiting. Like, I thought Ignites genuinely were going to be one of the best decks ever.
They felt cracked. I tested them. I remember when they came out, I was like, they felt insane, and then they just won.
Yeah, you could just, well, it's because like in that time Pendulum was like kind of brand new, and it was like, oh, okay, well, I can just destroy them, and I just keep on summoning monsters every single turn. I'm like, this is like broken. Like most people thought when Pendulums first came out that they were like so like insane for the game, and now it's like no one wants to play them.
Yeah, I
for the most part.
Obviously, the Master Rule didn't help with Pendulums dying, but it is insane how people are so turned off by them. When people hate them, and I don't imagine that a lot of those people that go in the comments and hate on them have actually played Pendulum decks or played against them at least in the last 5 years. Because the animosity towards Pendulum is interesting. Like, I don't think any other mechanic, I guess Link does a bit, but I think Pendulum still is much more hated than Link. And I think if I was a player who was going to get angry at something, I'd be more angry when Lynx came out and messed up all of the positioning orders with Synchro and Xyz and Fusions. I think I'd be more angry at Lynx than Pendulums, but Pendulums is the one that sort of has persisted for longer, I feel, at least from my comments and from what I've read online.
I think it's because to be on the receiving end of Pendulums feels really bad, because if you think about what the player on the opposite side of the Pendulum player has to deal with, it's like reading so much. And like, there's genuinely times where like I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's a card, I don't know what it does, and I just don't even care to read it. I'm just like, whatever, I'll just use my negates. I just don't even want to read the card. And I think that a lot of people have probably done that too. They're like, what's this card do? I don't care, dude. I'll just negate it. Like,
I have to, yeah, we all have at some point, I think.
And I think it's because like sometimes you just don't want to deal with it. And the point of a game is to have fun. But a lot of times with more modern Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not about, he's got this card, let me think about a strategy. It's like, oh, he's got this card, well, I guess I just have to GG out. I don't have like, I didn't stop it when it came out. It feels a little bit more frustrating. I think that going back to what you were saying before about the game being healthy, the whole point of Yu-Gi-Oh is to have fun. I don't think that you can realistically make a living other than if you're a vendor. Like, there's no real thing of a pro player. It can't really be a profession. You go top every single YCS. Are you going to be able to recoup what you've costed yourself to go to the event? It's very rare, I would say. If that makes any sense. Like, there's no pro scene. You go look at any, like, Call of Duty, Valorant, Overwatch. There's no, like, pro league with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I remember they wanted to do esports for Master Duel, but I don't know how that's playing out. I know that there is, like, recently there was a tournament with really popular like content creators. Like there was Kuno, there was Fuslie. I'm not sure. Do you know what the prize was for that?
I don't remember what the prize was. No, I imagine they were probably compensated themselves for appearing. But no, I don't remember seeing the prize. And I know they did another one in Europe where they invited popular European content creators over to Paris for a similar tournament. And yeah, again, I didn't see the prize, and I don't think they promoted the prize particularly heavily. It's not like it was sort of like a heavyweight title match, win, X amount of money. They really don't talk about the prizing at all. And I think you're right in terms of the professional players. There is no sort of, you can't live off Yu-Gi-Oh unless you're selling it or content creating. Like you can't live off it just by playing, like some people might.
And that's one thing that I think would drive people to be able to play the game and take it a little bit more seriously, because at the end of the day, I promise you a Blue Eyes deck that wins will do a lot better on YouTube content creation. Like if people were just interested in like, oh, I want this to be my career, and you have to be able to dedicate a lot of time to Yu-Gi-Oh, because Yu-Gi-Oh, there's so many cards, there's just so many things you have to learn. It's like another like job just to be able to even play Yu-Gi-Oh, to keep up with everything that comes out in the game. So I feel like it would be a huge benefit if they announce cash pool prizes for the game.
I remember,
but I don't know if it'll happen.
Well, there's I don't know if you saw it recently. MBT's organized a cash pool prize series for Master Duel. I don't know if you've seen that news. It came out a month or so ago. I can't remember the number, but it was very much, it was backed by some company, and the push is to sort of actually just organize cash. I think it was maybe $1,000 for the winner. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But money, like more money than the current Master Duel is ever offering anybody.
Yeah, I mean, $1,000 is. It's like, it's exciting for some people, but like, again, if you have to spend several days, like some of these tournaments may last several days, you have different pairings.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in terms of like $1,000 for a weekend, and on top of that, if you have to practice your deck, is it really worth it when you compare it to these prize pools of Fortnite being like $1 million plus? I don't think it's anywhere near it. I know Fortnite's way more popular, so they'll have more money, but
Yu-Gi-Oh is not doing poorly. Like it's doing. I don't know. I think culturally, I think it's doing okay. I don't know if you've been to. I don't know what it's like where you live, but when I was a kid, 2000 to 2005-ish, you go in the shops and there'd be sort of Yu-Gi-Oh toys everywhere, Yu-Gi-Oh figures everywhere. You go there'd be tins in Toys R Us, that kind of thing. You wouldn't have to look for Yu-Gi-Oh because it would be everywhere. And for a long, long time, that hasn't been the case. All the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff is hidden away in a hobby shop or in a card shop or an anime manga collection shop. Recently, I'm just seeing it more. I'm going into like a generic mall, and there's tins by the checkout. There's figures. There's Yu-Gi figures, Joey figures. Like Yu-Gi and Joey haven't been on television since what, 2004, 3 maybe? Like in a series, they haven't been on telly for a very, very long time. So it's very odd to see sort of, you can buy a Red Eyes figure now, like in just a normal comic shop. They've got to buy the desk. It's not some specialist item. I think it's interesting to see Yu-Gi-Oh sort of circulating a little bit more into. I think Master Duel's helped that, because a lot of people have come to Master Duel. A lot of big streamers that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh content creators, so like Ludwig and other people, they're getting on Master Duel.
Well, within the last 30 days, like I don't know if you've ever used Steam charts, but it's a great way to keep track. I'll throw this in the chat if you want to just look at it. So it's able to show off the actual numbers of the player base, and surprisingly, this month there's a gain of 0.12%. Hey, I'll take that as a win, because after its launch, it was kind of in the decline, and I was reading the comments in Master Duel, like that's content already. If you read how people it's the same thing that goes around Yu-Gi-Oh. It's just like, this guy set up 50 negates, took 3 hours for his turn, get to play. And that was going to be the kind of how most of the people, I want to say, left Master Duel, is because like, oh, I grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm gonna hop in, and they have to deal with like, a deck that just stops everything from working. And I think the turns take too long. I know you were going back to like what you were talking about earlier, talking about like how Nibiru, like 5 summons is enough. But I think the thing that's most frustrating with Yu-Gi-Oh is the amount of times people activate this, search this, do this. And it's like so many steps to the point where like, it gets to the point where like, dude, is it my turn yet? And I think that people lose patience, because we're in a age where TikTok is one of the most popular platforms, and it's like instant gratifications, instant, okay, what's the funny, what's the action, I want it instantly, right? Where Yu-Gi-Oh, one person is doing all kinds of stuff, but the receiving end on that is definitely not in the fun zone.
No, I 100% agree, and I see it all the time in my comments. So I play a lot of duels on live. As you highlighted, there's the anime TikTok format that's been going about. It's been pretty fun. But that format, one of the main rules is that nothing is banned, but there's power tiers. So, let's say Pot of Greed's an A tier card. You can only have 3 A tier cards. So you can't just stack your deck with crazy stuff. Shaddoll Winder's also an A tier card. So you can't have it all. You have to pick. And you're only allowed 1 copy of every card. So it's singletons. And my chat, whenever it's in my opponent's turn, they're sort of just like, oh, he's taking forever. He's searching, he's summoning. And I'm like, mate, if you think this is a long turn, you wait until he's playing a good, like, if we're playing like real Yu-Gi-Oh, like if he was playing a deck that wasn't all one-offs, he'd have the consistency searching. He'd be searching his deck all day.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of pet decks that you love, that you always go back to, or ones that you've had over the years? Like, what are your favorite experiences?
Favorite decks? Right now, I've been playing a lot of dinosaurs, and I kind of been sticking with them because I know the deck very well, and I know how to play out of a lot of things. But I actually really like Glad Beast, because the reason why is Glad Beast is a deck where you're punished for all of your mistakes, and it feels like most of the times that you lose, it's your fault. Whereas you take a deck like Light Swarm, which I used to play a lot of, there's no control. Like sometimes you win, you lose. It's kind of just, it's like coin flipping. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I try to stay away from those decks, but I like more creativity. So I try to stay away from archetypes. But now I've been honestly more in the focus in on Diablo. Like I want to do a lot more Diablo PvP.
Yeah.
So in terms of like Yu-Gi-Oh, like at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of things in terms of newer decks end up being the same thing. How many negates can you throw up? Can you make up like Appaloosa above the goddess and have like 3 or 4 negates on here? Can you throw up like a Savage Dragon in addition to an Aturi Beast? Because I look at a deck and I think, can this deck make Bow of the Goddess with 3 to 4 negates and Aturi Beast turn 1? No? Okay, I don't want to play the deck then. That's the way I genuinely see Yu-Gi-Oh right now.
And that was a small chunk of the very long and interesting conversation I had with Slaydra. Please take a look at his channels. He does a lot of great content, both in video games and Yu-Gi-Oh! And feel free to take the time to leave a like, share, subscribe if you're on the YouTube version, or leave a 5-star review if you're on the Apple Podcast or Spotify versions of the podcast. Next week I'll let you know how the regional went, and we'll find out together if I've got what it takes.